This morning we're going to be doing a reading comprehension about the story A New Pet. Remember, when we do a reading comprehension, all it is a little bit of a story and then we answer some questions about it. And it's a little bit like being a detective, because you have to have a look through the story to find the right answers. I'm going to read the story to you first, and then I'd like you to pause the video and have a go at reading it yourself. Ready? A New Pet. Tom was 6. He lived in a flat with his mum. The flat was on the top floor and it was very high up. One day, Tom said to his mum, "Mum, can I please have a dog?" But Mum shook her head and said, "No, Tom, you can't have a dog because there are no dogs allowed in a flat." Tom wanted to cry. Then he said, "Mum, can I please have a cat?" But Mum shook her head and said, "No, Tom, you can't have a cat because there are no cats allowed in a flat." Now Tom did start to cry. "I want my own pet," he shouted. Mum patted Tom on the back and gave him a kiss. "Don't cry, Tom. I will see what I can do." The next day, when Tom got home from school, there was a small cage on the table. Tom was so excited. He ran to look in the cage, and in the cage he found an orange hamster. Mum put the hamster in Tom's hands. Tom smiled and said, "I will call it Rusty." "Thank you, Mum." Now I'd like you to pause the video and have a go at reading it for yourself. Now we can go on to the questions. We'll go through the first question all together, but I'd like you to answer all of the questions in full sentences. You can either write it onto the worksheet, or in your remote learning book, you can just write number 1 and answer the question as a full sentence. I'll give you some hints of whether you need to have a look in the text for the answer or whether you're going to have to think for yourself. Okay? Question number 1. How old is Tom? So we're going to go back to the text and have a look through. And the first line says Tom was 6. Now that answers our question, doesn't it? And that gives us a full sentence as well. So Tom was 6. Number 2. Remember, you're doing this one by yourself, but I'll give you some little hints on the way. Where does Tom live? Now we can find that information in the text. So let's go back to the text. Pause the video here and have a look through the text. Remember, we're being detectives, trying to find that information. Pause the video and see if you can find that answer. Where does Tom live? Question number 3. What pets did Tom want? Now that information we can find in the text again, can't we? So let's go back to the text, pause the video, and try and find that answer. Question number 4. How does Tom feel when Mum says no? How do you know this? So for this question, we're going to have to find 2 pieces of information. We're going to have to find out how Tom feels, and then we're going to have to explain how we know that he feels like that. So we'll go back to the text, pause the video, and have a look for that answer. So how does Tom feel, and how do we know that? Question number 5. How does Mum try to make Tom feel better? Now we can find that information in the text as well. So let's go back to the text, pause the video, see if you can find that answer. So what does Mum do to try and make Tom feel better? Question number 6. Why was Tom excited when he saw a cage on the table? Now for this question, the answer isn't in the text. You're going to have a think. Why do you think Tom was excited when he saw a cage on the table? Question number 7. What was in the cage? Now, the answer to this question we can definitely find in the text. Let's go back. What was in the cage? Pause the video if you need a little bit more time to find it. Question number 8. Why did Tom call his pet Rusty? For this question, the answer isn't in the text. We're going to have a think and have a look at the text to see why we think he might have called his pet Rusty. Pause the video to give yourself a little bit more time. Question number 9. How do you know Tom is happy about his new pet? That information we can find in the text, so let's go back. Pause the video to give yourself a little bit more time. And question number 10. Do you have a pet or would you like one? What kind of pet? And this information we definitely can't find in the text. So you're giving your own opinion or your own experience. So do you have a pet or would you like one? If you do have a pet, what kind of pet is it? And if you don't have a pet and you would like one, what kind of pet would you like? And that brings us to the end of our questions. If you've missed any questions out, or you need a little bit more time to read the text, you can just go back to the beginning and go through it all again, or you can rewind or fast forward the video to find the parts that you need.